Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a tag video because I thought it would be fun, and this is the Finally Fall book tag. I saw this on the channel of Elliot Brooks, and I will link the video down below if you want to check that one out as well, which I would highly recommend if you're into fantasy. It's a perfect channel for you. Now, I haven't worn eye makeup, like eyeshadow, in a very long time, and the reason for that is that I'm usually quite allergic to it, and today I was like, dang it, I'm gonna try it again, and I'm still allergic to it, so it's already melting off my face. I hope you can ignore that. But yeah, let's just do the video so I can take all of this off again. So the first question is, in fall the air is crisp and clear. Name a book with a vivid setting. And I decided to do 3 books for every prompt, and these are all books that I've read within the last year, so the last 12 months basically, and I thought that way it would be kind of interesting. And the first book I wanted to mention was An Enchantment of Ravens. This is a fairy story, and I don't usually read a lot of books with fae in them, but this one was a pleasant surprise. I really enjoyed it, and I think the setting was one of the things that just really stood out to me, and I just loved the way this village where the main character was from was described, because this is kind of like a village that has kind of a crossover to the fae world, and they are intermingling because the fae can't really do any art. They can't really produce anything, though. So they're going to the human world to get those items that they can't make themselves, and in return they give the humans kind of little charms and enchantments, but you always have to be very careful what you wish for. And I just love that idea. I thought it was such an interesting setting, and then we also go into the fae world, and that was really cool as well. The descriptions of the environment was really nice. Then we have A Small Favors by Erin A. Craig, and this is a book that also has this like small town vibe, but this is more like settlers feeling. And we have this very isolated village in the woods. We don't really know the time frame, but we follow mainly a family. They are the beekeepers of this small village, and things are starting to go wrong, and we watch this very isolated village kind of unravel because of it. And again, the atmosphere in this book was just amazing. I absolutely loved it, and it's a very slow story but definitely creepy, so if you're into that, I think this book is really worth checking out. And last but not least, we have Conjure Woman. This one is also very special. It really surprised me because it had a lot of the elements that I love in a story. But basically this is set during and shortly after slavery time in the US South. And we are following this one plantation, and we see it in 2 states, like in the state when slavery is still going on and there is the master and stuff like that. And then we have the state after slavery was abolished, and we see how these former slaves are trying to hang on to that land and now use it as free people. But they don't really have a concept of what it means that they're free now. And I thought that was so interesting as well. There's also a reason why they can stay on that land, but I don't want to spoil it, so you have to read the book to find out. But again, this one was like so rich in the setting, and I absolutely loved it. And as I said, this book has like multiple things I absolutely loved. I loved the whole book, but the setting was definitely one of those things, and it was like very unique in that portrayal of a plantation, I think. Question number 2. Nature is beautiful but also dying. Name a book that is beautifully written but also deals with a heavy topic like loss or grief. Now, again, 3 books. The first book I wanted to mention is Open Water. This one I read earlier this year, and I think it deals with the topic of racism and what it means to be a black man really well. I really enjoyed this book. It's quite short, but it really portrays the kind of anxieties that go with being a black man in a predominantly white a place like London, and yeah, it was just so captivating. I thought that the emotions were really portrayed so well, so you could definitely feel what the character was feeling, and it was so easy to understand the struggles in some of these like very delicate situations. And yeah, I thought that the portrayal of this racism, and especially what it means for Black men, was dealt with so well in this book. Then we have Pachinko, which also deals with racism, but in a very different way, because in this book it focuses on the relationship of Korea and Japan in the 20th century. And again, it's such an interesting topic because it just shows how war affects people and how these like stereotypes and yeah, just discrimination affects people, because we're following a Korean family, but they live in Japan, and we have very different characters in this family who deal with their situation quite differently. So we have a character who really wants to be Japanese, and he thinks that the only thing that is standing in his way to success is that he's not Japanese. But we also have a character who embraces the stereotypes, and he's trying to make the best out of his life with the opportunities that he has. And so I think it's a very interesting exploration of this kind of, yeah, just hate against others, and I really love this book. And then the last one I wanted to mention is Small Country, which is probably the most harrowing book of the three, because this one deals with actual, how do you call that in English, genocide? Because this deals with the conflict between the Hutu and the Tutsi in Rwanda. And this was in the 90s, so it's not that far back in history actually, but it's something that people usually don't learn about in school or anything like that. So I think this book is very, very important, because the family of the author himself had to flee to France because of the conflicts in the region. So I think it's just a very, yeah, just a very horrible thing that happened in history, and it was very interesting the way this book dealt with it. Now, it is told from a child perspective, and I think because of that, some of the like very horrible things are just hinted at a little bit more. So I can imagine that reading other books about this topic might be even more harrowing, but it was definitely a very dark read, basically. Question number 3. Fall is back to school season. Share a non-fiction book that taught you something new. So starting with the oldest topic, I read a book about Pompeii. This is by Mary Beard, and I loved it. I love Pompeii, I love ancient Rome. I think it's so fascinating, and I also learned Latin for many years and love the language. So this was a great book to read, especially if you're into more of the everyday lives that these people had, because this touches on a lot of more the like mundane things. So it's talking about the food that people ate and the exercise they enjoyed and stuff like that. So I thought that was very interesting, and I really enjoyed this book. Then we have The Five by Helly Rubenhold. This one focuses a lot on the 19th century, the end of the 19th century in England, and it portrays what the lives of women in poverty would have looked like. And it takes the women that were killed by Jack the Ripper as examples for that. So basically we get like 5 kind of biographies of these women who for some reason or another ended up basically homeless and in poverty during that time, so that there were easy targets for the Ripper. And I really like this because I think that especially the mundane things, like the people, the everyday people lived during a time, that's what I'm interested in. And so yeah, this focuses more on like working class women and stuff like that. So if you're interested in these mundane things, I would heavily recommend this book. And then the last book, I do have my gripes with it, but so I wanted to mention is Ace by Angela Chen, and this is a book about asexuality, and I thought this was a very interesting read because it is basically not a deep dive, but like a a dive into what sexuality means in our society and why being asexual is such a break with our norms because sex sells and stuff like that. And so I really enjoyed looking at our society from that lens. Question number 4. In order to keep warm, it's good to spend some time with the people we love. Name a fictional family, household or friend group that you'd like to be part of. And this one, I had a very limited choice because I don't read a lot of happy books, so usually I don't want to be part of anything going on there. But I came up with 3. Now, the first one is the most obvious one, and that is the kind of friend group in Legends and Lattes, because in this book we are following an orc called Viv, and she decides to open up a coffee shop, but to actually get it done she needs the help of certain people, and they form this friend group, and it's just really precious. And one of the friends is a baking little rat, and I'm sorry, but if that doesn't sound amazing, like I want a little red friend who makes what are they called, cinnamon rolls for me every day. That would be amazing. So that would be my first one. Then the second one is not the family, but like the whole town in A Payback's a Witch. I really enjoyed this book and I'm intrigued to read the second one that came out now. This is a romance series but with witches, and the first book was also sapphic. The second book is not, I think. But yeah, this town was so cool because you have these, I think it's 4 kind of magical families, and this town is like all about fall, and they celebrate like Halloween really hugely, and there's a lot of tourists coming, and they have all these little shops that you can go to. And so just living in this town with like witches and like celebrating the fall like crazy, it sounds really, really nice. I would actually like to see that. And then the last one is the friend group in Nettle and Bone. In this book we follow a character who is a princess, and she sets out to kill a prince. And obviously to do that she will need some help, and she does get it from some like quite awkward characters. So we have a warrior who kind of fell from grace. We have a like a witchy character, a dust wife, I think it's called, and we have a fairy godmother with a specialty for curses, but she's like a cinnamon roll and she doesn't want to do it. So I think that's like such a fun combination. We also have a chicken that has a demon within it and a little bone dog. So I think it sounds perfect. Like, what's not to love? I would love to be part of that. And yeah, A Wish is so fun. I love that book. Question number 5. The colorful leaves are piling up on the ground. Show us a pile of fall-colored spines. And I did that right behind me because I thought that would be the easiest thing to do. Question number 6. Fall is the perfect time for some storytelling by the fireside. Share a book wherein somebody is telling a story. So I could not answer this question without mentioning the Broken Earth trilogy, because it's like my favorite thing I've read this year, I think. This is so good. Everything you've heard about this, the 5th season, The Obelisk Gate and The Stone Sky, is absolutely true. You need to read it. If you like fantasy, it's perfection, and I'm holding it upside down. Yeah, this is just fantastic, and you have basically someone telling the story, but you don't know who it is or why they're doing it. You just learn at the end, but I think that's genius, and the whole way this story is written is genius, because from the first book you have one of the perspectives who is in a you perspective, so a second person narration basically, and I love that. I think second person narration is one of my favorite things. And so, yeah, there's a whole reason for it, and you have to read the trilogy to find out. But I absolutely loved it. And I think there will be no book ever that has the perfection of this when it comes to the narrator of the story. Then I wanted to mention Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I think this is a great book for fall as well. The cover is already like pretty fall to me, but also the content I think fits really, really well. And this book is not narrated in a very classical sense, but it's definitely in the way that the main character is telling the story to you. So in the prologue, you basically start out at the end. So you first learn how it all ends, and then the story goes back to be told in a linear fashion from beginning to end. And so in that sense, it is also told by the main character to you. And then the last book I wanted to mention is a bit of a twist on the question, but it is M2WTF by Samantha Allen. And this is actually a very short kind of autobiography by the author. It is a bit of non-fiction, but I really enjoyed it. You can listen to it on Audible, and it's basically the author telling you about the more funny, weird parts of transitioning from male to female, and I really enjoyed this book. I mean, even though it's supposed to be more lighthearted and fun, you obviously can see the still horrible things that are going on with trans people, like they're being bullied and stuff like that. So it's not like this is like only super funny. You can definitely tell that there's darkness behind the fun stories, but still I thought this more positive light on transitioning was very refreshing. And you know, the whole toilet topic is definitely brought up, and yeah, I thought it was fun. Question 7. The nights are getting darker. Share a dark, creepy read. So you know I love my dark, creepy reads, though the first one I wanted to mention I read last year, and that is House of Leaves. This is a very popular book, like a lot of people have heard about it, but I don't think that many people have read it, even though it had a little bit of a comeback. It's actually not that new. I think it came out in the early 2000s, but this is a book that, yeah, it came out in 2000. This is a book that has multiple stories within it, because we, on the one hand, follow a family of a famous filmmaker, and they move into a house that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. And we follow that family as the husband tries to find out the secrets of this house. But then we also follow a story where a man comes upon the apartment of a dead man, I think, and he there finds this manuscript and he starts reading it, and we also learn his story through the footnotes in this book. So yeah, it's definitely an experience, and at the beginning it can be kind of dry and it takes a while to get into, but the more you get into it, it really sucks you in. It's an experience like no other, and it's definitely something to take your time with. And I gotta be honest, this book gave me a migraine because it is fucking weird. Then we have a classic, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I also read that last year and I loved it. I loved the TV show as well, even though they don't have anything to do with each other apart from some character names. So don't go into the book expecting the same story. But I think, yeah, I was like not expecting it to be so much of a haunted house story as it was, because people are always like, oh, it's not actually that scary. So I went into it thinking, well, it's not gonna be like a true haunted house story, but then I've read it and it's like a true haunted house story. So I love that. And then the last one I wanted to mention is Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. This is also a haunted house story, and you will see a theme here because I just love haunted house stories. Because I think the idea of a home and a home being corrupted can be so interesting. And Just Like Home is exactly that. It's an exploration of what home means, what family means, and yeah, just what it is like to come back home. So yeah, I would highly recommend that as well. It is weird though, it is a weird book, so be warned. Question number 8. The days are getting colder. Name a short, heartwarming read that could warm up somebody's cold and rainy day. Now, as I said, I don't do a lot of cozy, fun reads, so I had a bit of a struggle here. And the first one I think still works for it, and that is Pet by Akweke Emezi. This is one of my favorite books I've read so far this year. It's absolutely fantastic, and I definitely think it is short. It is also heartwarming because these people are kind of living in a utopia, but this book deals with the question whether a utopia can really exist, basically, or if there is always gonna be bad people. And yeah, really enjoyed it. I don't want to say much more about it. Then again, we have Legends and Lattes. I already mentioned orcs, rats, baking, cinnamon rolls, and coffee. So I think that's all you have to know. And the last one, again, Nettle and Bone. I already talked about all the lovely characters and how much I would like to be a part of their traveling band to go kill the prince. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one as well. And I think it is quite heartwarming in the way that all of these characters are coming together, similar to Legends and Lattes, and they just help each other out. And I think that's great. Question number 9. Fall returns every year. Name an old favorite that you'd like to return to soon. Now, I specifically made this like autumnal favorites, and the first one I will probably reread this year, let's be honest, and that's the Nevermore books. I love them. I was so sad that the 4th book got pushed back, so I think it will not come out until next year, but still, can I really resist a reread of this? I don't think so. Then we have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. This was actually my first book of hers that I've read, and I absolutely loved it. It's also very short, but it's so dark, and I just loved the themes that this was dealing with, especially this like household of 2 sisters who then get I think it's a cousin or something like that, a male cousin who shows up at their door, and he's trying to infiltrate into their household and showing them how it's really done. So yeah, I really love that. And then coming November, I always get the biggest urge to reread The Hunger Games. I don't know what it is about November, but it's always in November. So I don't think I will do it this year. I haven't done it for quite a few years, but the urge is always there. I don't know, Hunger Games is just a November series for me. And funnily enough, I have not read them the first time in fall, so it can't be that. Okay, so that would be all I wanted to talk about today. I hope this video isn't too long, but knowing me, it probably is, so I'm sorry. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and let me know what kind of books are the most fall feeling to you in the comments, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!